Hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So up in Nottingham last week, taking in the sights and sounds of Warhammer World, I managed to squeeze in a game against Charlie's Warriors of Chaos, and it's an all Khorne event today with the Warriors of Khorne led by Valkyr the Bloody against the Demons of Khorne led by a nameless bloodthirster. And my list, as many of you will be familiar with already, it's unchanged. It's 42 bloodletters with full command and the Banner of Swiftness. It's 2 units of 4 Blood Crushers with full command, one of them with the Banner of Eternal Flame. It's 2 units of 6 Fleshhounds, 2 units of 6 Furies, 2 Skull Cannon, and of course it's led by the Bloodthirster. He's got a greater gift and a lesser gift to round out at 475 point Bloodthirster. So I'm up against the Warriors of Khorne, and as you can see, it looks like quite a small elite army. I'm looking at it wondering where all the points are. From left to right, we've got an exalted hero on a demonic mount. We've got a chimera. Moving along, we've got the Gorbeast chariot with the Mark of Khorne. There's at least 35 warriors with double hand weapons, Mark of Khorne, full command. There's an exalted hero, BSB, in there, and of course Valkyr herself. 4 skull crushers, musician and standard bearer, and a hell cannon. And having a quick chat with Charlie before the game, I learned that Valkyr is 405 points, which just blew my mind. I'm thinking, wow, I've never actually read her rules in detail. But bearing in mind that a naked bloodthirster is 400 points, I mean, she must be pretty potent. And then I find out that actually if you're in base to base with her, you lose an attack and you lose a pip of strength as well. And she's toughness 5. I mean, I knew she would have a sort of Chaos Lord stats, but I don't know, maybe the fact that she's female or the model looks kind of slim. I wasn't expecting her to be toughness 5. And of course, with -1 strength, she's effectively toughness 6, so just as tough as the Bloodthirster. So it'll be interesting to see how that combat goes. I'm quite lucky with my gifts. I roll a 6 and then another 6. So I've got the +2 attacks and the ASF on the gift. So my Bloodthirster is rolling 9 dice when he gets into combat. He's re-rolling, as nothing in the opposing army has initiative 10. He's hitting on 3s, re-rolling with 9 dice, and then, yeah. So he's pretty deadly. And actually feeling pretty good about the game just to begin with, because as deadly as Valkyr is, I sort of have a bit of a hard counter because I've got an even more deadly character in the now very tooled up Bloodthirster. But I'm still wondering where all the points are in this Warriors of Chaos army. I guess the characters and the Chimera and stuff have all the upgrades and magic items, so I'll have to watch my step when we get in hand to hand. So with an all Khorne matchup, there is of course no magic phase in the entire game, and with very little shooting in just the Hell Cannon and the 2 Skull Cannons, this kind of makes the first few turns quite swift. The Warriors of Chaos win the roll-off for first turn in this battle line scenario, and move up, as you can see in the picture. The Exalted Hero comes up the right flank there for the Warriors. I had initially positioned my Bloodthirster on that flank to deter the Chimera and the Exalted Hero from sort of crashing down that flank where all I really had was 1 Skull Cannon on that side. But the Exalted Hero seems pretty brave and just sort of comes up to give the Bloodthirster a charge there, whereas the Chimera moves towards the middle of the table to try and, I suppose, escape the Bloodthirster, or at least come over to the other flank. The Hell Cannon straight away takes out one of my Skull Cannons on turn 1. Yeah, it is what it is. We've got Hell Cannons and we've got Skull Cannons, and whoever gets first turn can seize the advantage in that way. On Demon's turn 1 then, the Bloodthirster just goes straight into that Exalted Hero, tears him apart. Not sure exactly what Charlie had in mind there, but he obviously wasn't expecting me to go for the charge. But it just worked out fine for the Bloodthirster, because I had initially hid him sort of behind those thick trees there, out of sight of the Hell Cannon, and he was able to land after killing that Exalted Hero conveniently behind that rock, so he's still out of sight of the Hell Cannon. So it worked out quite well for me. But I got a misfire on the other skull cannon, so I'm yet to actually shoot any of the skull cannons. Just I suppose the only silver lining is that it didn't blow up in my face. The only other movement for me, of course, was the flesh hounds down the right hand side, and that's where we finished up after turn 1. So Warriors turn 2, and the main units of the Warriors advance steadily towards the lines of the Demons. The big block of Chaos Warriors advancing up the centre. They do open up their flank there a little bit to the Flesh Hounds in the woods, but I guess they're not really scared of them. And the Bloodthirst as well, but the Bloodthirst is quite far away, and there's quite a good chance that he would fail a charge from that distance anyway. The Skull Crushers advance towards my lines as well, bearing down on my horde of Bloodletters. That's not a very good fight for the Bloodletters because, of course, I don't get the killing blow against the monstrous Cav. And of course, they can stomp me, and they've got a whole host of attacks there, so don't really fancy that fight. The Chimera also moves towards that flank, bearing down on the Flesh Hounds on that side and the Horde. So, yeah, the Horde is going to have to stay back for a bit because it doesn't want to get caught up with Skull Crushers and a Chimera, because that's not a very good fight for them. And in the centre, of course, you've got my 2 units of Blood Crushers looking at this big block of Chaos Warriors led by Valkyria and the BSB, and there's well over 1,000 points in that unit, and I've got to figure out how I'm going to crack that nut. There is, of course, that Gorby's Chariot, which slows down its advance a little bit so that it can't be seen by the Bloodthirster, and that is also a bit of a deterrent for my Bloodthirster to come into the middle as well, because with impact hits, of course, that's one of the sort of good counters that the Warriors have against an always strikes first Bloodthirster. So I've got to watch out for that Gorby's Chariot. The Hell Cannon fires against my unit of Flesh Hounds on the left-hand side and takes 2 of them out. And we move on to Demons turn 2. So in my turn, I've got some decisions to make now because the Warriors are virtually on top of me already, and I can't just keep backing off forever. So I bring out the Furies, as you can see in the picture, to get in the way of those main units and try and bait these. Of course, they are all frenzied, right? So I can bait these units into an overrun. Perhaps I can set up some more favourable combats. The Bloodthirster moves closer to that rock, so he's still hidden from the Hell Cannon, but a bit closer to the middle of the board, so there's the option of a charge on turn 3. I shift one of my units of Blood Crushers forward and positioned at an angle, which you can see in the picture there. I'm kind of worried about Valkyria flying out of that unit by herself and trying to hack up one of my units. She's definitely got the form for it. I don't know what Charlie be thinking at this point, whether he's thinking I need to protect Valkyria or whether I need to use her to protect the Warriors unit, because of course that Warriors unit will be a bit weaker without her in the unit. So I try and set up my Blood Crushers so that if she does want to take the bait and go into one of those units, I can countercharge with the other unit. Even with the demonic instability, it's very difficult to take out one of those Blood Crusher units in one turn, even if you do get the charge. So hopefully that should deter Valkyria from coming out of that unit. And let's see if they decide to go into those Furies next turn or not. My Flesh Hounds on the right move out of arc of that Chimera. Yeah, I don't want to get jumped on by that Chimera on the edge of the board there. So they're threatening the Hell Cannon now. And once again, the Winds of Magic are quiet and nothing of any. I think I rolled 2 7s on the trot there. And then the Skull Cannon, in typical competitive style, rolls another misfire and this time blows up. So yeah, I never got to actually fire any Skull Cannons the whole game, but there you go. Warriors turn 3. Now this is when it gets interesting. So the Chimera charges my horde of Bloodletters. And that is a bit scary because, of course, the Chimera's got all the upgrades, got the extra attacks, got the breath weapon, and proceeds to just take out a whole swathe of Bloodletters, killing like 10 of them. Or more, probably more actually. I think it was like 12 or something like that. I managed to take a couple of wounds off in return, which is quite promising, and perhaps I'll be able to take out that Chimera before it chews through the whole unit, but we'll see. The Skull Crushers go into the Furies, the Warriors go into the Furies, and so they are kind of taking the bait, and of course they will have to overrun with their Frenzy. And then Charlie gets a really bad piece of luck here and rolls a 111 on the dangerous terrain for these Skull Crushers and actually loses one out of their number as they charge through those woods there. So that was pretty unlucky, but seeing as I've just rolled 2 misfires in a row with my Skull Cannons, I didn't have any sympathy at that point. Yeah, the Gore Beast Chariot still staying back behind that rock, sort of waiting for my Bloodthirster to come in as a sort of counter there, and then the Hell Cannon misses in the shooting phase. So yeah, good sort of charge with that Chimera, and then things are kind of set up for Demons turn 3 here for some counter charges. So Demons turn 3 then, I've got a few charges to make. I've got the Blood Crushers in the centre there going into the Skull Crushers. I've got the Blood Crushers on the left-hand side going into the flank of the Warriors, and the Bloodthirster going in as well to the flank of the Warriors. And the Bloodthirster fails the charge and just stumbles forward a few inches. Yeah, really upset by that, but what can you do? Hopefully my Blood Crushers can tie up that Warriors unit for long enough so that my Bloodthirster can come in next turn and then try and tip the odds back in my favour. But I do have the Fleshhound still to help me out here. So I've got one set of Fleshhounds which chaffs up that Gore Beast Chariot to protect the Bloodthirster, and the other set of Fleshhounds which charges into the Hell Cannon to protect the Bloodthirster from that as well. So those Fleshhounds proving really useful, and actually I'm really thankful in this game that I've actually got sort of more units to play around with, the Furies and the Fleshhounds to sort of act as chaff and strategic units that I can use here to make sure my Bloodthirster stays alive. Yeah, and that's it really. I forget to roll, quite embarrassingly, dangerous terrain for my Blood Crushers, which I kind of feel a bit bad now, obviously, because the Charlie's lost a Skull Crusher here to dangerous terrain, and then I forget to roll it for the same woods. I think it's because when the Skull Crushers went into the terrain, we actually removed the terrain piece just to because it was hard to break up that wood. You know, the trees were stuck to the base. And then I think we just forgot to roll dangerous terrain for the rest of the game. And as you'll see in later turns, there is more. There's more charging and fleeing through that through that wood later on in the game as well. So we just completely forgot to roll dangerous terrain after that. So yeah, I think that was a bit of an error there. But yeah, so I've made most of my charges except the Bloodthirster. And what happens in combat? So the Blood Crushers actually draw combat with the Skull Crushers, which was a great result for me, because yes, we're getting the +1 strength on the charge, but typically those Skull Crushers are much more deadly with their higher initiative, with their more attacks, with their 1+ save. I managed to roll on the Winds of Magic the +1 ward save just at the right time, just as I'm getting into combat. I managed to get that boost to the ward save, which was fantastic. The Blood Crushers in the flank do win combat, of course, because the Warriors don't have most of their attacks. But of course they are steadfast. They turn round to face the Blood Crushers afterwards, and the next round of combat won't go so well for me, I'm sure. The Bloodletters, with their superior initiative to the Chimera, take off another 2 wounds, and that Chimera is down to 1 wound now. It kills another whole swathe of Bloodletters and gets a good Thunderstomp and everything, but I'm now feeling quite confident that I should be able to kill that Chimera before it chews through the whole unit. And then at the far end of the board, the Fleshhounds do 3 wounds on the Hell Cannon. Couldn't believe it. I mean, they're strength 5 on the charge. They're still wounding on 5s though, and the dice come up in my favour, and they really do some damage to this Hell Cannon. They lose a few of their number in return. The instability roll isn't so bad, and that combat continues. So feeling pretty good about Demons turn 3 there. I've sort of set up the main combats that I wanted to set up. I'm hoping that I'll be able to get through that Chimera, and the Bloodthirster will come in to see if we can tackle Valkyr the Bloody. Warriors turn 4, the Gore Beast Chariot is in against the Fleshhounds right in front of them, and kind of fluff the attacks a little bit. The impact hits and only kill 2 Fleshhounds, and the Fleshhounds do a wound in return, and so it's kind of locked in a stalemate there. Again, with the Hell Cannon at the back of the board, that carries on, and the Hell Cannon doesn't manage to kill all the Fleshhounds, and the Fleshhounds do another wound. I think the Hell Cannon's left on 1 wound after that combat or something, and it's proving a bit harder to shift those Fleshhounds. The combat with the Warriors in the middle, I think Valkyr and the Warriors do something like 5 wounds or something on the Blood Crushers and really win combat quite well. Although they are within range of the Bloodthirster, and I managed to pass my instability test. I think I was rolling on a leadership 5 or something, and I passed it. And so they managed to stick in there. And of course, I'm still declining the challenge at this point, because I want to keep my champion intact for when the Bloodthirster comes in. Miraculously, the other unit of Blood Crushers in combat with the Skull Crushers managed to draw combat again. And actually, the Skull Crushers lose another one of their number. I think it was only because of Charlie's decision not to take a champion that the musician was left alive, and I didn't win combat. So really, the dice coming up on my favour there, and the 4+ ward save that I've got proving more useful than the 1-up save of the Skull Crushers. And then on the flank, the Chimera finally succumbs to the Bloodletters. Hellblades is the phrase I'm looking for. I was about to say Weeping Blades. That's Skaven, isn't it? The Hellblades of the Bloodletters finally taking out the Chimera, and the big horde swivels to face the flank of those Skull Crushers. So, yeah, I mean, it was quite a good turn for the Demons, even though it was the Warriors' turn. And I think things slightly to sort of tip in my favour, as I've now got the opportunity to bring the Bloodthirster in to fight Valkyr. However, when the Warriors win combat, they do a little combat reform, and Valkyr moves more central in the unit to avoid her being in base to base with the Bloodthirster when the Bloodthirster charges in. So the turns are taking a bit longer to do now because we're rolling dice for big complicated combats, and on Demons turn 4 that trend continues. The Bloodthirster is in against the Warriors now, and it'll be interesting to see how that combat goes with our generals potentially meeting. The Bloodletter horde is still in horde formation, charges into the flank of the Skull Crushers now, and those Skull Crushers prepare for a bloody end in Khorne's name. The Fleshhounds, which have been sort of MVPs for me this game, those 2 Fleshhounds in combat with the Gore Beast Chariot win combat and run that Gore Beast Chariot down, which is just fantastic. I mean, even with the higher initiative of those Warriors, they're unable to kill any of those Fleshhounds, and we get a couple of wounds in return and chase down the chariot. Just fantastic. The Hell Cannon finally finishes off the other Fleshhounds, but is left on 1 wound remaining, and there isn't any decent targets for the Hell Cannon to shoot, at least not right now. In the combat phase then, as you would expect, with those Bloodletters coming into the flank, the Skull Crushers lose combat, and the last remaining Skull Crusher standard bearer flees in the direction of the main combat in the middle there. The Bloodthirster charging in at strength 7 kills a whole host of warriors. I think it kills like 8 of them, including the Thunderstomp. I take some wounds back in return, of course, from Valkyr. It was the BSB that issued the challenge, and the BSB loses a wound in the challenge, but also takes a wound off my Blood Crusher champion, so that challenge continues. And of course, they're still steadfast. They still have their frenzy because they've got this rage banner, which means they never lose those extra attacks. And so that combat continues. But I'm kind of hopeful that soon the Bloodthirster will be able to get his hands on Valkyr and see if he can kill her. So Warriors turn 5. The last remaining Skullcrusher champion rallies, as you can see in the picture there, and is sort of left bearing down on, with those 3 Blood Crushers bearing down on him. And it kind of looks like the writing on the wall here, because on my turn I will be able to charge and hopefully go through that last Skullcrusher who's left on 1 wound and come crashing into that main combat there and hopefully clean things up. The Hell Cannon is once again off target, and we move on to the close combat phase. Now, the Bloodthirster decides to put his attacks into Valkyr, and kind of fluffs the dice a bit, swinging his whip and his big axe wildly, and only does 1 wound from Valkyr. Valkyr strikes back and does 1 wound off the Bloodthirster. The challenge continues with the exalted hero doing a wound off the Bloodcrusher champion, but the Bloodcrusher champion still unable to land that killing blow on the BSB after losing a wound, doesn't do any in return. The warriors take out another of the Blood Crushers. I do have my Thunderstomp, but it's not enough to make up for the banner and the BSB and the other combat res from the wounds there, and I end up losing combat. And I roll the instability and I get a 10, and the Bloodthirster suffers another 2 wounds and is down to 2 wounds remaining. Demons turn 5. Very foolishly, I forget to do the combats in the correct order, and I end up doing the combat with the Bloodthirster and Valkyr before I do the Blood Crushers, which is just a rookie error. And what happens? Well, Valkyr ends up killing the Bloodthirster in hand-to-hand. I think I take another wound or 2 off of her, or sorry, 1 wound off of her, but she's still left with 1 wound and manages to kill the Bloodthirster. And I'm just left there thinking, gosh, how did I muck that up? All I had to do was do that Blood Crusher combat first. But yeah, it is what it is. The Blood Crushers finish off that Skull Crusher, come crashing into the back of that combat, and we're left to turn 6 to see how things unfold. Fortunately, in turn 6, the Blood Crushers are able to finish off the rest of the warriors. Valkyr fails the break test, flees, and we cut her down, and that's how the game ends. But it was touch and go there at the end. I feel like if I'd done that combat in a different order, the Bloodthirster would still have lived, actually, and it would have been a much sort of bigger win for the demons. But I've still got my Horde still alive. I've still got the Blood Crushers alive, and it's only a Hell Cannon that survived on the side of the warriors, so it's still a win for the Demons of Chaos. So Khorne is, of course, the winner in such a matchup. Great to do an all Khorne game like this. I've got newfound respect for Valkyr the Bloody. She certainly is a force to be reckoned with, especially with that debuff that she has on the strengths and attacks. She didn't do much flying in the game, which I suppose she could have done, certainly after those cannons had been taken out. But I guess better to have her in the unit with the ranks and the banner and BSB, the static combat res, helping to fight against the demons, which you really need to try to take some wounds off the demons from the instability, which of course was how the Bloodthirster was defeated in the end. I would have liked to just to do a sort of one-on-one fight between the 2 generals there, but that only happened in the context of a bigger combat. I think I kind of had an advantage in this game in a couple of respects. Firstly, because obviously the weakness of Demons of Khorne is their vulnerability to magic, and there was no magic on the other side, so that's always helpful for Demons of Khorne. And I sort of had more units and more speed overall, so I was able to sort of get around the flanks. I was using those Flesh Hounds to sort of get in the way and eventually defeat that Gorby's chariot and come round and engage the Hell Cannon. I think it's an advantage, and it's certainly my preference not to have all my units frenzied. I think, especially with demons, as you've got units that don't flee as well. So fast units that don't flee and not frenzied, you've got good control over your units, and you can really sort of control the board and get round the board quickly and chaff up enemy units and reliably. Whereas if you've got all of your units are frenzied, you don't have full control over them. You're going to be overrunning into positions that aren't that helpful. And yeah, I just prefer to play Demons of Khorne rather than Warriors of Khorne. But yeah, that big unit of Chaos Warriors, and each warrior has like 4 attacks in the front rank. That is just scary. And you can hit it in the flank, but then of course it's steadfast and it turns around and starts to hack you up. So it's it was good to sort of find a way to crack that unit in the end with the Blood Crushers and their stomps, and the Bloodthirster and the Thunder Stomps, and finally take out that unit, because of course that's where all the points are. But yeah, really enjoyable game. Great to play it at Warhammer World in the big hall there, and I'm sure we'll have a rematch at some point too. Hope you like it, guys. If you make it this far, hit that like button, smash that like button, I should say, and subscribe and leave a comment and all that good stuff. And I'll speak to you all soon. Goodbye.